Today, we're diving into a difficult but absolutely vital topic: accountability in times of war. We're going to examine several historical accounts of when the rules of war were allegedly broken and explore the tough questions that always seem to follow.
5 years for that? Can you imagine saying that? That was the actual surprised reaction of a U.S. soldier to his own sentence for murder. It's a shocking quote, and it really cuts right to the heart of what we're talking about today, that huge, sometimes unbelievable gap between an act of violence and what passes for justice. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to walk through the source material piece by piece, looking at these historical accounts. We'll compare what witnesses on the ground said happened with what the official records and investigations concluded. Let's get into it. Our first stop is Vietnam on February 19, 1970. The story of what happened at Son Thang is a brutal example of how a mission that starts with a cry for revenge can just completely spiral into a tragedy for innocent people. So here's the setup. Just a week earlier, a Viet Cong ambush killed 9 American Marines. In response, a small 5-man patrol was sent out with a pretty clear order: avenge them. They went into the small village of Son Thang, and from there, hut by hut, they rounded up unarmed women and children and executed them. All told, 16 civilians were dead.
Now, the first story that came out, completely different. The patrol's official report claimed they'd run into 15 or 20 enemy soldiers and gotten into a firefight. But that story didn't last even 24 hours. The very next day, local villagers told another Marine patrol what really happened, and the truth came out.
So what happened to the soldiers involved? Well, 2 were convicted. One got life in prison, the other 5 years. But, and this is a big but, those sentences didn't stick. A major general stepped in, reduced them, and both men walked free after serving less than a single year.
And look, this kind of thing wasn't just a Vietnam thing. Not even close. The source material shows that this pattern, this disconnect, goes way, way back, stretching from the American West in the 19th century all the way through World War II.
Just look at this timeline. You've got 4 different events, spread out over 75 years, but they all share a common terrible theme: the killing of defenseless people. And each one raises serious questions about command decisions and, of course, accountability. Let's start back in 1870. U.S. Army forces were looking for a specific hostile band of Piegan Blackfeet. Problem was, they attacked the wrong camp. The one they hit was peaceful. Its chief even had a safe conduct pass from the U.S. government. They were also suffering from a smallpox outbreak. About 200 people were killed, mostly women, children, and the sick. And the initial report? The commander claimed they were all warriors. It was an Indian agent who blew the whistle and exposed the cover-up. Now let's jump to World War II, often called the Good War. Well, even there, things got messy. At the Battle of the Bismarck Sea, Allied forces were ordered to hunt down and attack Japanese survivors in lifeboats for days. Then you have Chinon in Belgium, where U.S. troops executed around 80 German prisoners. General Patton himself wrote about it in his diary, hoping they could conceal it. And at Young Holzhausen, dozens of teenage German soldiers were allegedly gunned down after they had already surrendered.
Okay, let's head back to Vietnam, to a mission that would haunt its leader for the rest of his life. It's a story with 2 completely different, totally irreconcilable versions of the truth: the Thanh Phong Massacre. First, you have the official account from the team leader, a man named Bob Carey, who would later become a U.S. Senator. He said his Navy SEAL team took fire from the village. They fired back from a distance, and it was only when they moved in that they made a horrifying discovery. They had killed at least 13 unarmed civilians, women and children, by mistake.
But then there's another story, a much, much darker one. It comes from another team member, Gerhard Klan, and from Vietnamese survivors. They say there was no firefight. They claim the SEALs rounded up the civilians and that Bob Carey himself gave the order to kill them all to keep them quiet. Now get this. Based on the official report that his team killed 21 Viet Cong, Carey was awarded a Bronze Star for his actions that night. Decades later, when the story came out, he said he'd been haunted by it for over 30 years. He said that while it could be justified militarily, he could never make his own peace with what happened. All right, let's fast forward to the 21st century. The nature of war changed, right? Asymmetric warfare in places like Afghanistan and Syria brought a whole new set of challenges and, as you'll see, a whole new set of controversies. And guess what? That same pattern of conflicting stories pops right back up. In 2007 in Afghanistan, a suicide bomber hits a Marine convoy.
The official report says the Marines were then caught in a complex ambush and responded appropriately. But Afghan witnesses, they tell a terrifyingly different story of Marines just speeding down the highway for miles, firing indiscriminately at anything that moved, cars, people on the street.
This next one, the raid on Qataba, is really something. NATO's initial story was that their troops walked in and discovered a grisly honor killing committed by the family. But survivors claimed American soldiers killed the women, 2 of whom were pregnant, and then literally tried to dig the bullets out of their bodies to hide the evidence. Eventually, the military retracted the honor-killing story and apologized. But the final outcome? An internal investigation found the troops followed the rules. No one was disciplined.
And it wasn't just on raids. Let's talk about what happened inside the Bagram prison in Afghanistan. In 2002, 2 detainees were beaten to death in the span of 1 week. One of them was an innocent taxi driver named Dilaware. He was chained to the ceiling and struck more than 100 times. A medical examiner said his legs looked like they had been run over by a bus. 27 personnel were investigated, but the punishments were incredibly light. A few reprimands, a couple months in prison here and there. And this chart, wow, it speaks for itself, doesn't it? This is from a 2019 airstrike in Syria. A U.S. jet dropped a bomb on a crowd of people. A New York Times investigation found that 64 civilians were killed, mostly women and children. The official U.S. military investigations count 4. Just 4. So, when you take a step back and you lay all these accounts out from the 1870s all the way up to just a few years ago, a very distinct pattern begins to emerge. And this right here is the crucial takeaway from all this.
Just look at this data. The Marias massacre, exposed cover-up but no punishment. Chenang, investigation blocked. Santang, sentences that basically vanished. Qataba raid, 0 disciplinary action. And the Baghouz strike, officially ruled not a violation of the laws of war. Do you see it? It's the same arc, over and over and over again, across centuries.
This is the heart of it. Time after time, the source material reveals this persistent, recurring gap, a gap between the harrowing, often horrific stories told by witnesses on the ground and the clean, official conclusions reached by military investigations after the fact.
And that leaves us with one final fundamental question. When memories and official records are in direct conflict, when soldiers and survivors and official investigators all tell a different version of what happened in the chaos of war, who gets to write the final story?